Ravi, or the guy that I sit next to, I bounced those two names off of him before, saying kind of don't forget about their emergence. I think Keelan Smith is a guy that could be as good as how he can handle the rigor will allow him to be. You know my affinity for Quinn Clark. Were you taken aback that he said, I don't really want to mention names, but then did mention names?
Yeah, I thought it was
It's not
funny to
really
say.
he said this is not really
Well,
his,
Rule brought him up earlier this week too.
you know.
Yeah, like I think that's my biggest like I figured Quinn would be in the mix. I kind of wondered where Keelan kind of fit into the receiver room now. And I think it is very, I mean, we all know this. I mean, the staff is very intentional in who they mention and why they name certain names. I think it's been very intentional in praising Keelan for the work he's done over the last year or so. Specifically, it sounds like over since, DeKeel Shorts joined the staff and what he's done over the last few months. Um, it makes the competition at wide receiver all the I mean, like I think it just convolutes that competition a little more because it's like, okay, well, yeah, you cannot forget about a Keelan Smith or a Quinn Clark, even though you have exciting young players like Jeremiah Jones and Cortez Mills on the roster. Like I think Keelan's one that's been discounted, but then you go back and watch the high school tape, you look at the overall body of work and what he has to work with. He's a very sound prospect, just a very like all around sound prospect. It's not like, oh yeah, Quinn Clark's big and tall and explosive. Oh, Jeremiah Jones is big and fast. It's like, no, Keelan Smith can do a lot of different things really well. He's a pretty solid route runner, pretty solid at the point of attack, or at the catch point. And well built, pretty well proportioned, can run solid routes, like kind of that hybrid between, okay, he's not a tank like Janarin Bonner necessarily, but he's a big body that, I think a corner
Beautiful
would have trouble.
him yesterday.
Yeah.
It's a big bodied, thick, physical dude.
Big dude.
In Bonner.
Yeah, it's been a lot of talk across the SEC and the Big Ten about like girth recently. Like Janarin Bonner is one of those is like, good Lord, man. Like he's wide.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can do a lot. I keep saying we kind of sleep on him a little bit.
I don't. That's been my guy for like 2 years. I'm just waiting for him to break out.
He can do a lot. He can do a lot.
Tim, how do you feel about the depth in the wide receiver room? Because we talk about it like it's a fairly deep room, but then once we get past Key, Hunter, and Barney, there's a lot of kind of unknowns and not a ton of production. What do you think about the depth in that room?
Yeah, I think it is unknown, but I mean that's everywhere right now. It's a lot of positions right now. And I think when you look at the talent in the room, I don't really have an issue with or like I don't really have any issues with projecting some of these guys specific like okay, I think Cortez Mills is going to be ready to play at some point, if not very early in the year. Like I just think I'm pretty confident in the type of prospect he is. He's pretty confident in himself. I'm pretty confident that he's going to have again if they weren't so deep, he would have had like a Ja'Cory Barney type freshman impact. How big of an impact he has now that the room is deeper, we'll see. But I think he's a guy that's going to translate and be fine. Quinn Clark, I think you have to kind of be a little confident in the different body type, the added weight he has, and I think on top of all of this, I think my confidence lies in one, Dana Holgorsen's offense has made it relatively simple for these guys in the sense that they just have to master these routes. It's not, okay, well, I'm getting thrown in the field and I have to do all these different things. I have to remember this play from this install way back. It's like, no, you just have to know these routes. And two, you have a established wide receiver developer in DeKeel Shorts and Andrew Verghese. You have those guys working with them now, where I do think come season, come Cincinnati game, I think this group is going to be ready beyond the top three. I think they're going to be six plus deep at receiver, where they can put any of those six out there. They're pretty confident in what those guys can do.
Tim, I'm going to read you off some heights and weights here for a second, okay? 6'2", 225. You've got 6'5", 210, 6'1", 205, 6'4", 225, 6'3", 210. Those are some of your receivers for Nebraska. That's a pretty huge group.
Yeah. Yeah, they have not had sides like that in a good bit. At least established sides like that. They've had bigger guys, but like the Omar Mannings and so on and so forth. But no, not established
Well, on
sides
like
like
one
this.
at a time, right? They haven't had.
Right.
I just named 5 guys.
Yeah, exactly.
That was Bonner, Hunter, Smith, Clark, and Jeremiah Jones.
And Hunter doesn't look like a big guy.
He's pretty good size though.
He's physical.
Yeah, he's physical.
He's definitely that. Let me ask you something, TV. Obviously, with the news of Markway, I'm obviously on your guys' board. It was long rumored, and people wanted verification. We finally got official word. When does it change the way that you feel about the tight end room, or do you now put the fact that Rule, outside of, I feel like me, is the only person that's brought up Ingerson? Rule brought him up the other day as a guy that they think is going to be a fantastic player. Do you look at the next man up mentality in the tight end room like that, or do you think to yourself, okay, this is kind of an inexperienced room in terms of production anyway? Shoot, we got to keep everybody healthy. Like, how did that kind of land as you looked at all the comments about that tight end room for this past week?
I think on one hand, it's kind of like what Dana said yesterday of just like what's next. What's next. You kind of have to look at, okay, how do you lost this guy? How do you look at the room moving forward? Weirdly, what it did for me in terms of projecting the room for 25, I kind of figured with, if healthy, with Markway, Lindenmeyer, Nelson, Harburg, if Nebraska was ever in like a tight spot or needed to throw a changeup out there or just needed something out there, I felt the strength would be the tight. Like it's like, okay, well, we just need something. We need a play, 12 personnel. That's kind of what I felt going into the year. Now with Markway down and you have an established tight end in Luke Lindemeyer, you have talent but unproven talent in Carter Nelson and Heinrich Harburg. Now I'm like, okay, well, I think they're going to live out of 11 a little more. Like, not to say they're not going to play a whole bunch of 12 and 13. I just think, and maybe this is just my personal theory, I just think Markley was the established type tight end that gives them something as both a pass catcher and a blocker. That now it's like, okay, well, now we have to make sure Carter Nelson is up to speed. Now we have to make sure Heinrich is ready to go as a blocker. Now we need to make sure Ingerson is ready to go as a pass catcher on top of being a pretty solid blocker.
Yeah,
Just at
he's the one in the room that's not like the others.
right
He's
exactly.
a legitimate mauler.
Right. So that's where, like, that's what I'm saying. When you need something in the pass game, it's like, okay, well, yeah, maybe they come out in 12, but it's like, okay, it's Ingerson who's staying in line to block as like a essentially sixth offensive lineman. Like, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just like, again, like overthinking it a little bit. But my first thought was, oh, well, that's an established name gone. They really need Carter Nelson and Heinrich Harburg if they want to play as much 12 as they want to.
Do you think that changes at all? I mean, we brought up the size we brought up the size at the wide receiver room. Not saying that they would switch positions with any of these guys, but do you think they might get a little more creative with some of the bigger guys like a Bonner and what they do with him as a result of this?
I think so. I think that's just what I'm kind of expecting. I think again, the goal of this offense has always been to eventually get to position with this team in general has been to get somewhat positionless, and you have the body types to do that now with a Jenron Bonner. You throw in Isaiah Mosey as well as like you can kind of throw him in a couple different spots now. I kind of view, even though he's technically in the running back room now, I kind of view Mosey as like a souped up Jenron Bonner, like from a couple years ago, what they wanted Bonner to be, of like that kind of hybrid fullback type role. That's personally where I view Mosey. I think he's going to be kind of more like a dynamic, do it all type offensive weapon. But they are in that position now with the size at wide receiver, like you mentioned, with these different body types and skill sets at tight end, and all these different body types and running back, where they are somewhat positionless and they can line up in a few different ways, and you can get answers and you can get into like, okay, hey, here's a winnable situation against whatever defense you play through a multitude of different ways.
The Saturday for you, Tim, I'm just kind of going through this in my head as we're processing the hype machine, right? Do you prefer to go watch that experience kind of well talked about offensive line versus D line portion of practices, or these kind of new toys, these big rangy toys on offense with the depth in the secondary? As from a viewing standpoint, to tell you what you need to know about this football team?
I mean, it's the Big Ten. It's going to be the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. Like I'm weirdly, we've talked a lot about the depth in the wide receiver room. Even though it is unproven beyond the top three guys, I'm a lot more confident in the depth at wide receiver and DB right now than I am
Mm,
in the depth at offensive tackle and defensive line.
mm.
Tim, when you're looking at, let's talk defensive line for a second here, because until Coach Rule brought it up at Big Ten Media Days, I was pretty much the only person that was confident in it. Where is your biggest concern, though, on the defensive line? Is it you mentioned the depth of defensive tackle? Is it just unknown, unproven guys kind of out on the edges outside of like a Cam Lenhart who's played a decent amount? Like, where is your biggest concern there?
It's confidence and aggression when Riley Van Poppel and Keona Davis are off the field. Like I think there's going to be moments where like both of those guys are off the field. I think ideally Nebraska would want to rotate where at least one of those guys is on the field. But where's the confidence? Where's the aggression at? If it's, like Elijah Judy, Dylan Parrott, and Cam Lenhart out there, can they break through the line and get to the backfield? Can they stuff a run at the line of scrimmage? It's all mentality at this point. I do think from a size standpoint, I'm pretty impressed with some of the work they've done along the D line. They do look like a Big Ten squad on both sides of the line right now. Like physically, they're there. They're where they need to be in terms of height and weight and all of that and strength. But what does this look like in practice? Can they hold up again, like as consistently? Because the thing about Nash and Ty and what you're having to replace is not just the general the players they both are. Like Nash was a space eater and a guy that could really kind of hold the line of scrimmage, and Ty was obviously the one penetrating the line. There was a natural aggressiveness there with Ty specifically that it's tough to replicate. I think Riley has that in him, or like RVP. I think you've seen that on tape, that he has that aggressiveness to him. I don't know about the rest of the line. I need to see that for myself before I'm ready to kind of just check that off for them.
So, Tim, I want you to listen to something. I want to go back to offense for a second, because we talked about ad nauseum last year about, the quick game and why does it always look like the screens? And I was trying to explain the RPOs and the checkdowns, and we were thinking, big plays and getting vertical this year in the passing game, right? How do we utilize Barney and some of these guys? I want to play this response from Coach Holgorsen when talking about the offensive philosophy this year, and let me know what your thoughts are. Shane, roll that clip up when Coach Holgorsen was addressing getting vertical in the passing game.
One of our goals as an offense is to become a little bit more explosive, with more explosive bodies. I think that'll naturally happen. Okay. But that's not what we're going to obsess over. We're not going to be reckless with our play calls just to try to get explosive plays. That will come situationally. That will come. Where that really shows up and your yards per play go up is just routine play after routine play after routine play. If it's a check down for 5 yards, that's good. That's better than an incompletion, right? Or that's better than a sack. So just focused on routine plays, taking what the defense gives you. If you do that consistently, those routine plays turn into big plays with good players. And I think we have good players that can turn routine plays into big plays.
Thoughts?
Yeah, that's confidence of a competent and well-polished offensive coordinator, like a guy that has done this at a very high level and knows what it takes to coordinate a elite type offense.
Just
and
no
he's not wrong.
Just no panic in the answer, right? Is very
not at all.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
It is just like that's what you want, and just in general, like a confident, established coach is always going to get to that point. Yeah, David, but like is going to get to that point where he says, if you execute the plays work. He knows that. I mean, it's Dana Holgorsen. Come on, the plays work. is Dylan Raiola going to be able to make the right reads? Are the players going to be able to turn, a short gain into a long gain? You have confidence on paper in Dane Keaton, Isaiah Hunter, Ja'Cory Barney, Heinrich Harburg, Emmett Johnson's ability to do that. We have to see it obviously in practice, but yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely reason for confidence, and I think especially if we get back to again the Dylan Raiola we saw early in the season, the one that developed where he was processing through and taking the right read and was taking the check down and was comfortable with kind of dumping it off and not forcing a play. I think that's the Dylan Raiola we're going to get, one. And two, if we do get that guy, I do trust these playmakers to, turn that stuff into longer gains. I did notice when we were at practice, and we noticed it through spring too, it's a lot of what even though it's not air raid necessarily anymore, Dana Holgorsen's offense is so like the route combinations they're doing, what they're stressing to wide receivers and tight ends. It's so much about stressing defenses vertically and horizontally, and that's how you win. That's how you create matchups. That's how you create seams in the defense. And with the personnel Nebraska has, they can win in so many different ways right now. That I mean, I don't think they have to make it complicated.
It's interesting. I immediately, when I heard that comment, I thought about a conversation I had with QC last year, or Quinn Clark last year, when, we talked all week. He was working, getting reps with the top units early in the week. And I didn't really talk to him after Thursday, but Saturday eating, I said, man, why'd you get my hopes up? I'm messing with him. I'm like, what happened? And TV, I'll never forget this. He looked dead at me, kind of shook his head, and he said, man, DB, I'm not going to lie to you. Your boy couldn't get lined up this week. Oof. And I just was like, it was the maturity and the reality of the truth of what he's, hey, listen, I got snatched, man. I wasn't getting lined up properly. I didn't get my shot. I didn't get my shot. And I pit that against Dana's comments about consistency and doing those simple things in the routine. And I'm like, those two things vibe, right? I see the natural byproduct of not having the opportunity, no matter how talented you are, because you can't do the routine. And then I hear it double down on philosophically yesterday about why they need to be able to do the routine, right? That's the first thing that I thought of.
Yeah, very good observation. Another thing that just sticks out to me from that, you hear at other places and other schools, a guy transferred and it's like, yeah, well, I just didn't really know what the coaches thought of me, or I didn't know where I stand. I'm like pretty buried on the depth chart and don't know where I'm going. I think something, and this is from talking to players and coaches, like something Nebraska has done, especially with this new staff, under Rule in general, but especially with this new staff, they let everyone know why they are where they are. Like there's
Yeah,
it's pretty open. It's pretty and it allows for trust to grow between the players and the coaching. In this transfer portal era, the reason why I think Nebraska is positioned, if they start winning some games, to successfully retain the roster at a high level, is because they're honest and because they're like, okay, hey, you're not seeing the field right now. Here's how you can see the field. It's not that we don't believe in you. It's that you're not doing this thing right. It's not, okay, this guy's not doing it right. We're just going to ignore him and we're going to let him keep doing what he's doing. And eventually he's just going to filter through the program and transfer out. It's like, no, they want everyone to compete. Even the guys you may have forgotten about, guys that, it's like, oh, we talked about Keelan Smith at the top of this. Okay, yeah, Keelan Smith doesn't have the size of a Quinn Clark, maybe doesn't have the athleticism of a Jeremiah Jones, maybe isn't the route runner or wasn't the recruit that Cortez Mills was, but the staff hasn't given up on him and they see something valuable there and they've continued to develop him. And now he's going to probably play a role in that receiver room this fall. And if he doesn't, I expect him to stick it out because he's pretty locked in and pretty dialed into his development here under Da'Keil Shorts and Dana Holgorsen.
Tim, we kind of use this term development, and it always, I feel like for a lot of people, it seems sort of like abstract and ambiguous. And it's like, well, this is a good developmental staff, but the last couple staffs weren't. And I feel like we kind of use that as a catch-all when a player doesn't meet our expectations for some reason or another. But is it really just as simple as what you described as the coaches taking the time and being intentional, be like, hey, this is the reason you're not getting on the field. This is what we need you to do to get on the field. I mean, outside of the like strength and conditioning and nutrition and stuff like that, like, is it really just that simple in terms of being a developmental program?
When you have everything else in place, like Nebraska does, like the strength and conditioning program, like the nutrition program, like the facilities, when you have everything else in place, yeah, it is that simple. And especially when you have coaches on both sides of the ball that are established. You have a DeKeel Shorts that, can point to what he's done with, um, you know, uh, guys at Kentucky, guys at Houston, specifically Tank Dell, Dane Key over the last year can probably speak to it. Barian Brown at Houston, Matthew Golden, now first round pick. When you have that experience at receiver, when you go to the defensive side of the ball, you look at Addison Williamson, you look at what he did at UCF, and you go to Terry Braden, and you see what the way the guys in the D line talk. It's like, yeah, that guy was coaching Chris Jones last year, and now he's coaching me. Of course, I'm going to listen. They straight up said that. And so. When you have those guys, when you have the resume as well, yeah, I think it's going to be listened to, and at least they're going to take their shot. And at least give it their best shot. It's like, okay, yeah, 2-3 years down the line, if the development isn't there, then something changes. But as long as the development is there and you're starting to see the proof in the pudding, and so far the staff has some proof in the pudding to show to kind of display. I mean, think about all the stories we've had from the last year. Guys maybe not get drafted, but John Bullock turning into what he did at this program. Nash and Ty turning into who they did. On the offensive line, Bryce Benhart, kind of turning his career around. There's guys in this program that saw Bryce Benhart at his lowest and what the talk around Benhart was and where Benhart ended his career. And they saw that turnaround. And the only thing you can point to is the development of Matt Rule and Donovan Raiola.
Let me ask you something to the counterpoint. If we're talking, like, obviously, because DH was the one that talked yesterday, this has kind of been offensively dominated. Have we allowed ourselves to think if these guys are being coached up by the guys that they are, the impact that it naturally has on the defense with the efficiency that the offense likes to operate under, the byproduct of what naturally has to happen if you want to be formidable defensively to stop these guys, right? I mean, the defense is just naturally going to be better by seeing an offense that is ran by a guy that is philosophically pays attention to detail like Holgorsen.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're also going to be challenged by quarterbacks with, again, and no disrespect to anyone that's been in the the past few, but you're challenged differently because of the depth at quarterback behind Dylan Raiola as well. You're challenged by Mark Stavilla's ability to push the ball vertically. You're challenged by Jalen Gramsted's general understanding of the playbook and his ability to check things down. You're challenged by TJ Latif's mobility to pair with, what he can do, through the air. So
he's a savvy son of a gun for a pup.
Yeah, they're gonna that's the thing. I think the defense is getting all kinds of different looks because of the different types of quarterbacks Nebraska has in the room right now. And real quick, we touched on it earlier, but it's about Dana Holgorsen making things simple to create, vertical plays and shot plays. I think if you zoomed out and you just kind of looked at it, there may be some whiplash within the fan base because 2 years ago, Nebraska was having to pull out the trick plays to create vertical because they just didn't have the quarterback back there to do it. They didn't have the protection up front. They didn't really have the weapons up front. It was like, oh no, we have to manufacture this shot play for Jalen Lloyd or Malachi Coleman. And now we're 2 years later. It's like, no, if they do their play, if they execute as they should, we'll have opportunities to get vertical. We'll have opportunities for explosive plays. It can come as maybe because that's why 2 years ago, the philosophy was, oh, you have to get as complex as possible. You don't have to do that anymore when you have playmakers.
Tim, going off of DB's question here, one of the big issues with the defense the last couple of years has been, getting off the field on third down, giving up third down and longs and high leverage situations and things like that. To your point about the quarterbacks, do you think that that's naturally going to get better because they are facing, I mean, let's just call it what it is. They weren't facing guys in practice the last 2 years that were capable of making the plays that some of these guys they're seeing in games could make. Do you think having guys like Davila and Latif and Gramstad is going to help them in that area as much as anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because there's going to be so many different looks. I think both sides are going to be sharpening what the third down look is. I think it's obviously been a point of emphasis. And I think it's just something that, again, they also get so many different looks. Like you have Dylan likes to take the deep shots sometimes, but for the most part, he's safe. He'll take risks only when he knows he can take those risks. But takes a comfortable play. Marcus is not like that. Marcus is going to push the ball. That's been him since high school. He's going to push the ball downfield. He's going to threaten you vertically. Bramstead's going to be ultra conservative, even more so than Dylan. And
Super
so,
accurate. And ball's coming out on time too.
yeah, exactly. Like that again, that's the difference between those top three. I think you throw in the TJ, who kind of does all of that. He can create off platform if you blitz him and he's forced to run out of the pocket. He can do that. He can extend plays. He can do all these different things like Dylan can. I think Dylan and TJ are probably the closest in terms of play style and what they're able to do down to down. But they are going to be challenged in so many different ways that it will prepare them for what they see this year. When you face a Brendan Sorsby, who on third down, he's a threat with his legs, and his arm. Same goes for like a Bryce Underwood. And then you have, throughout the year, you're going to face different types of quarterbacks that, there are going to be quarterbacks on the roster that third and long or second and long, they're going to try and push you vertically where, Marcus is probably the better look there.
Yeah, we saw that at USC, and they didn't make him pay. So, obviously they'll be better as well as Nebraska will, but that comes to mind as well. Let me get you out of here on this, TV. When you talk about the big plays that will come and doing the routine and the offense versus the defense, how critical, because we don't talk about it a ton openly because we can't see it yet, and no pun intended. How just getting guys to the ground in space, right? Like that unto itself, this defense versus this offense, the big rangy bodies, the accuracy of the quarterbacks in the passing game, tackling in the open field and getting guys to the ground will be, in my opinion, be paramount for how I think they want to play defense. And you're getting a good look with the offensive versatility and what they can throw at you. Because it's all about space and pace for offense.
Right. Right. Yeah. The offense wants to get the guys in space. Defense is trying to eliminate that. Yeah. I think it's going to create a bunch of looks. Yeah. I mean, I think the thesis of our conversation in general is like practicing against better players is going to make you better. And Nebraska has more talent on offense than they have in a while. That's going to naturally going to make the defense better, who in their own right has, at least at certain positions, has more talent than they have in years past. You talk about the defensive ends, you talk about the cornerback specifically. I think there's more talent in those rooms than years past. They may be unproven, but going up against Dane Keys, going up against Isaiah Hunters and Ja'Cory Barneys and the guys they face offensively is going to make everyone better. I mean, Dana said it, but yeah, I mean, competition and depth is going to make everyone better. And I think come the end of fall camp, I think it's going to be the reason why you see more stories like Keelan Smith and Quinn Clark, where it's like, oh, this guy, you may have forgotten about him. Hey, here he is, number 2 on the depth chart. Here, you know what I mean? Like, I think you're just going to see some of these guys that are hard workers, that are have put in the work and have committed themselves to their development, step up late in fall camp and into the season because they just continue to execute and deliver consistently.
That's our guy, Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska. Tim, great stuff as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, TV.
Appreciate you guys. See you.